3 years of silence shattered in an instant when my husband walked through the door, but he wasn't alone. He brought a stranger, a woman with his child cradled in her arms, their laughter echoing in the home we once shared. My heart raced as I realized the life I had rebuilt was now a cruel mirage. The betrayal cut deeper than I ever thought possible, yet the fire within me ignited. I had a choice: remain the victim or reclaim my power. My name is Leela. I chose to fight back. The air felt heavy with unspoken words, and every breath I took was laden with the weight of confusion and hurt. I couldn't tear my eyes away from the child in Rachel's arms, a small boy who had my husband's features etched all over his face. It was like looking at a twisted reflection of my own son, Sam, and my heart ached for the innocence he embodied. In that moment, I stood paralyzed, caught between the past that felt like a distant memory and the chaotic present that threatened to swallow me whole. Mark's presence was both familiar and foreign. The man I once loved was now entangled with another woman, creating a life I had never agreed to. Mark's eyes searched mine, an expression of uncertainty flickering behind them, and I felt a rush of anger surge through me. How dare he return and disrupt the fragile peace I had managed to build? I remembered nights spent worrying about him, wondering where he was, if he was safe, and whether he even thought of us at all. But now, as I watched him standing there, the reality of his betrayal twisted in my gut like a knife. I had fought so hard to keep Sam happy, to shield him from the pain of his father's absence, and now this man had come back with a new family, oblivious to the scars he had left behind. "Leela," Mark finally spoke, his voice shaky, the weight of his words hanging between us. "I can explain, but what could he possibly say that would make any of this okay?" I could feel the heat rising in my cheeks as I prepared to unleash the whirlwind of emotions swirling inside me. My mind raced, recalling every moment I had spent crying over his absence, every day I had struggled to raise Sam alone, and here he was, pretending that everything could be fixed with a few words. I took a deep breath, grounding myself, reminding myself that I was stronger than this chaos. "Explain?" I echoed, my voice steadier than I felt. "Explain how you left without a word? How you chose to build a life with someone else while I was left to pick up the pieces? What could you possibly say that would make this right?" With each question, I felt a piece of my heart harden, a shield forming around my vulnerability. Rachel shifted the child in her arms, a silent acknowledgement of the pain she had unwittingly become part of. I wondered if she knew the gravity of the situation she had walked into. Did she understand how much she had disrupted my life? Sam, who had been quietly observing the entire scene, finally broke the silence. "Daddy?" His voice was soft, tinged with confusion. In that moment, my heart shattered a little more. I turned to him, kneeling down to his level, trying to shield him from the storm brewing around us. "Sweetheart, I hesitated, searching for the right words. How could I explain this complicated mess to my innocent child? I needed to be strong for him, to protect his heart from the turmoil that threatened to engulf us. Mark stepped forward, reaching out for Sam. "Hey, buddy, it's Daddy," he said, his voice laced with a hint of desperation. But I wasn't ready to let him take that connection away from me, not yet. I gently pulled Sam closer, feeling his warmth against my side. "You don't have to go to him right now, love. You can stay with me," I whispered, hoping to offer him some reassurance. I could see the confusion in his eyes, a reflection of the chaos around us. My heart ached for the simplicity of his childhood, now tainted by the complexity of adult relationships. Rachel watched us with a mix of regret and resolve, her grip on the child tightening. It was clear that she wanted to assert her role, to stake a claim in this fractured family. "Leela, I didn't ask for this either," she said, her voice softer than I had expected. "I never meant to hurt you." I felt a surge of resentment bubbling within me. Did she think an apology could erase the pain? Did she think I would simply roll over and accept her presence in our lives? Mark's expression shifted as he glanced between us, clearly uncomfortable with the tension. "Can we all just talk? There's so much to explain, and I don't want you to feel like this is a competition," he pleaded. A competition? How could he even frame it like that? This wasn't about winning or losing. This was about the life I had built while he chose to abandon us. I wanted to scream, to shake him until he understood the gravity of his decisions. But instead of succumbing to the whirlwind of anger, I took a moment to collect my thoughts. I needed to assert myself, to reclaim my narrative. "You walked away for 3 years, Mark. You made your choices," I said, my voice unwavering. "You chose Rachel, and now you want to waltz back in and act like everything is fine? It's not. I need to protect Sam, and I won't let you two disrupt the life I fought to maintain." I could see the surprise in both their faces. The clarity in my words seemed to jar them from their complacency. Mark opened his mouth to respond, but I didn't give him the chance. "I need time to think, to figure out what this all means for Sam and me. You both can't just drop into our lives and expect everything to be okay." I turned to Sam, who was watching with wide eyes, and knelt to hold his hands. "We'll figure this out together, I promise," I reassured him. I could see the flicker of fear in his gaze, but I hoped my words would soothe the confusion swirling in his mind. As I stood back up, I felt the determination build within me like a fortress. I wouldn't be a victim of Mark's choices. I would navigate this storm with grace and strength for Sam's sake. I had lost so much, but I wasn't going to lose myself in the process. As I looked between Mark and Rachel, I knew this was just the beginning of a challenging journey, and I was ready to confront whatever lay ahead. I would fight for my family, my son, and ultimately for myself. The silence between us stretched, fraught with unspoken words and unresolved feelings. I could see the flicker of uncertainty in Mark's eyes as he glanced at me, perhaps searching for the familiarity that had once defined our relationship. Sam, blissfully unaware of the tension swirling around him, tugged at my sleeve, his innocent smile a stark contrast to the turmoil in my heart. I knelt down to his level, and in that moment I felt a surge of determination. He deserved a mother who was strong, even if my heart felt like it was crumbling. "Mommy, can we go to the park?" Sam asked, his enthusiasm untainted by the heavy air in the room. It struck me how simple his world was, filled with the innocence of childhood. I glanced at Mark, whose expression was hard to read. I knew he wanted to connect with our son, to reclaim the role he had abandoned, but I couldn't allow the past to dictate our present. "Sure, buddy," I replied, forcing a smile. "Let's go to the park." As we stepped outside, I felt the cool breeze wash over me, a brief relief from the heaviness that loomed. Sam ran ahead, kicking a pebble, his laughter echoing through the air. I followed him, glancing back at Mark, who seemed rooted to the spot for a moment, as if he were battling with the gravity of the situation. Rachel lingered behind, her presence an unwelcome shadow. I had to remind myself that I was no longer just Mark's wife. I was Sam's mother, and that was my priority now. At the park, the vibrant colors of spring surrounded us. Kids played on swings, their laughter filling the air, but my heart felt like a storm. I pushed Sam on the swing, watching as he soared higher with each push, blissfully unaware of the complicated dynamics brewing just beyond his view. I caught glimpses of Mark and Rachel from the corner of my eye. They seemed engrossed in a conversation, their proximity to each other betraying an intimacy that felt foreign and painful. "Look, Mommy, I can fly!" Sam yelled, his joy infectious. For a fleeting moment, I allowed myself to be swept into his happiness. The weight of my reality momentarily lifted. I cheered him on, savoring the way his eyes sparkled with delight. Yet every laugh echoed a reminder of what had been lost and what now threatened to unravel. After a while, Mark approached me. His hands shoved deep into his pockets, a nervous habit I recognized all too well. "Leela, can we talk?" he asked, his tone hesitant. I felt a wave of resentment rise within me. Did he think a conversation could mend the wounds he had inflicted? "What's there to say, Mark?" I replied, trying to keep my voice steady. "You left. You made your choices." "Please, just hear me out," he urged, desperation seeping into his voice. I glanced at Sam, who was blissfully playing nearby. I took a deep breath, knowing this was a conversation we couldn't avoid. "Fine," I said, stepping a few paces away from Sam, "but let's make it quick." Mark's eyes flickered with a mix of relief and anxiety. "I know I hurt you, and I never wanted any of this," he began. "Rachel, things got complicated. I wasn't thinking straight when I left." I folded my arms, resisting the urge to roll my eyes. "Complicated? You think that's all it was?" I shot back, my voice rising a little. "You walked away from your family? From your son? You made a choice, Mark." "I know, and I'm sorry," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "But I want to be a part of Sam's life again. I want to make things right." His earnestness was disarming, but I couldn't let it distract me from the reality that stood between us. "What about Rachel? What about the life you built with her?" I pressed, my heart racing. "You can't just expect me to open the door and welcome you back." He looked down, shame evident in his posture. "I don't want to tear apart what you and Sam have," he confessed, "but I also can't just pretend Rachel and the baby don't exist. I want us to find a way to coexist." His words hung in the air, a fragile truce that felt impossible to grasp. "Coexist?" I echoed, incredulous. "What does that even mean, Mark? You want to play the role of the perfect father while keeping your other family on the sidelines? That's not how this works." Frustration bubbled up within me. "You need to understand that I can't just forgive and forget. It's going to take more than a few heartfelt apologies." "I know," he admitted, his voice trembling slightly, "but I'm willing to do whatever it takes. I'll fight for you and Sam. I want to help. I want to be part of this." There was a glimmer of sincerity in his eyes, but I also recognized it as a plea to ease his conscience. "Part of what, Mark? The life you abandoned?" I shook my head, the anger surging again. "You left us without a second thought. You made your choices, and now we're here, trying to pick up the pieces." He nodded, understanding my pain, but unable to offer a solution. "Just give me a chance," he said softly. "We can figure this out together." I searched his eyes for any trace of the man I once loved, but all I saw was the weight of decisions that had already been made. I knew that this would not be a simple reconciliation. As I turned back to check on Sam, I felt a surge of resolve. I couldn't allow myself to be swayed by Mark's promises. My priority was clear. Sam needed stability, and I needed to protect him from the chaos that Mark had brought back into our lives. I would not let this situation dictate my worth or my future. "Let's just focus on Sam for now," I finally said, my voice firm. "We'll figure things out in time, but I won't promise anything beyond that." Mark nodded, a mix of relief and uncertainty etched on his face. The journey ahead would be anything but easy, but I was prepared to fight for my son, for our future, whatever that might look like. As I watched Sam laugh and play, I realized I couldn't change the past, but I could redefine the future. The road ahead would be challenging, but I was no longer willing to be a passive participant in my life. I would take charge, drawing strength from my love for Sam and my unwavering determination to forge a better path. If you've been inspired by Leela's journey of resilience and transformation, consider subscribing for more stories of strength and courage. Join us as we navigate the complexities of love and family together. I stood at the window, watching as the late afternoon sun cast long shadows across our yard. The vibrant colors of the flowers I had planted last spring seemed to mock my turmoil. Each petal swayed gently in the breeze, a reminder of the life I had nurtured alone, while Mark's return felt like a storm brewing on the horizon. My heart ached with betrayal, but I also felt a flicker of something else: power.
I had built a life for Sam and me in his absence, one filled with laughter, safety, and love. But now that sense of security was threatened by the very man who had once been my partner. As I turned away from the window, the air felt heavy with unspoken words. I could hear Sam's laughter filtering through the walls, blissfully unaware of the storm raging just outside his world. I had vowed to protect him, to shield him from any fallout.
But I also knew that it was time to address the truth. Mark had returned, and with him came a new reality that I had to confront, no matter how painful. My mind raced with questions that demanded answers. How could he have been gone for so long? What had he done during those years? And most importantly, how could he expect to step back into my life without consequences? When I finally gathered the courage to face him, the living room felt suffocating. I found Mark sitting on the couch, a picture of casual indifference, as if he had stepped out for a quick trip to the store and had simply forgotten to come back. Rachel sat nearby, quietly cradling the baby, her gaze flickering between Mark and me, a silent challenge resting on her shoulders. I could sense her confidence, the way she held herself, as if she had every right to be there. It was infuriating, yet somehow empowering. I was not just some lost soul waiting for him to return. I was Lila, and I would reclaim my narrative. Why now, Mark? I managed to ask, my voice steady, though inside I felt like a volcano ready to erupt. After 3 years of silence, you waltz back in with your new family as if nothing happened? The words hung in the air, thick with emotion. He shifted uncomfortably, a flicker of guilt in his eyes that I had hoped to see. I know it looks bad, but I had to come back. I missed you and Sam. I made mistakes, Leela. His voice trembled slightly, but I wasn't about to let his remorse sway me. Missed us? I scoffed, crossing my arms tightly across my chest. You left us without a word. You chose to start a new life, and now you expect me to just accept it? Each question pierced through the facade he had built, and I could see the cracks beginning to show. Rachel shifted the baby in her arms, her expression a mix of defiance and pity. You don't understand the whole story, she interjected. Mark was lost, and I was there for him. Her tone grated on me, as if she believed she had some sort of claim on his soul, on our life. Was there for him? I echoed, my voice rising. You don't get to rewrite history. You think playing the role of the savior makes it okay? I took a breath, willing myself to remain calm. I had to pick up the pieces of my life while you both frolicked in your version of happiness. And now you want me to accept you as if you're some kind of family? Sam's laughter echoed again, reminding me of my priorities. I looked towards the sound, the innocence of his joy driving home the gravity of this moment. I had to be strong, not just for myself, but for him. Mark, I need to protect my son. I won't let your choices disrupt his life any more than they already have. He deserves to grow up without the shadow of your mistakes hanging over him. Mark's expression shifted to one of anger, but beneath it lay fear. Fear of losing me, fear of losing Sam. I want to be part of his life, Leela. I want us to be a family again. His plea sounded hollow, and I knew he had a child with Rachel who was also seeking a father's love. You already chose your family, Mark, I replied, the words cutting through the tension like a knife. You can't just shift gears and expect me to welcome you back with open arms. I need to think about what's best for Sam. There was a silence, a moment where everyone in the room understood the weight of my decision. The baby cooed softly, pulling my attention back to Rachel. The little girl resembled Mark, and I felt a pang of sorrow for her. She was innocent in all of this, just like Sam, yet their worlds were about to clash in ways I couldn't begin to fathom. I can work for it, Mark said finally, desperation lacing his words. I'll fight for us, for our family. I'll do whatever it takes. His eyes locked onto mine, pleading for a chance at redemption.
But the reality was more complex than any promise could solve. I realized I had to define my boundaries to assert my worth in this tumultuous situation. If you truly want to be part of our lives, then you need to start by being honest with yourself, with us. This can't be just about you or your guilt. It's about what's right for Sam. Rachel watched us, her grip tightening on her child, as if bracing for the storm she knew was coming. I met her gaze, and for the first time, I saw a flicker of understanding. We were both mothers, both trying to protect our children from a battle they didn't choose. It was time to find a way forward, even if the path was fraught with challenges. As I stepped back to consider my next words, I realized this was not just about Mark's return. It was about me reclaiming my life, asserting my place as a mother, and finding the courage to face whatever came next. The journey ahead would be difficult, but I was ready to fight for my family, whatever that family might look like now. Taking a deep breath, I focused on Sam, who was sitting on the living room floor. His toys scattered around him, blissfully unaware of the storm that had just entered our lives. His innocence felt like a fragile thread I needed to protect, and the weight of the situation pressed heavily on my chest. Mark may have returned, but I was determined not to let his choices disrupt the only sense of normalcy my son had ever known. I could already feel the tension in the air as I glanced at Mark, who stood awkwardly just beyond the threshold, his expression caught somewhere between remorse and defiance. "What do you want, Mark?" I asked, my voice steadier than I felt. I needed to lay everything out in the open. He needed to understand the magnitude of what he had done, not just to me, but to our child. I watched as he shifted his weight from one foot to the other, the silence between us growing thicker. "I want to explain, Leela," he finally said, his tone earnest, but it only fueled my anger. How could he think there was an explanation that could justify his absence? The betrayal, or the child he had chosen to bring into our already strained lives? My heart raced as I tried to maintain my composure, my focus still on Sam, who was now stacking blocks oblivious to the chaos surrounding him. "Explain? You think an explanation is enough? You've been gone for 3 years, Mark. You left me to pick up the pieces while you started a new life. I need to know why you thought any of this was acceptable." I could feel the heat rising in my cheeks as the words poured out, each one tinged with pain and a flicker of rage. He took a step closer, lowering his voice, as if that would soften the blow of his reality. "I made mistakes, Leela. I never meant for it to go this far. But Rachel, she was there when I was at my lowest. I didn't know how to come back to you, to face what I had done." The mention of Rachel sent a wave of nausea through me. I had imagined this moment countless times, rehearsing the conversations in my head. But hearing it from him felt like a dagger twisting in my gut. "So you just decided it would be easier to start a new family instead? What about Sam? What about us?" The questions tumbled out, echoing in the hollow space between us, and I could feel the cracks in my heart widening. Mark ran a hand through his hair, clearly at a loss for words. The silence stretched between us again, this time heavy with unspoken truths. I turned my gaze to Sam, who was now humming softly to himself, blissfully unaware of the tumult brewing just a few feet away. I had to focus on him, on what he needed, rather than getting lost in the emotional mire that Mark had created. Sam deserves to know his father, but he doesn't deserve to be caught in the middle of this, I said, my voice shaking slightly. I felt the tears brimming at the corners of my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. I had cried enough over the years, and now I needed to stand firm for my son's sake. "I know it's a lot to handle, and I'm here to take responsibility," Mark replied, his eyes pleading for understanding. But his words felt empty to me, a hollow promise that lacked the weight of true accountability. I want to be a part of his life. I want to make things right.
I closed my eyes for a moment, summoning every ounce of strength I had left. You can't just waltz back in and expect everything to be fine. You've built a life with Rachel and your new child. You have to figure out what that means for us. My heart raced, grappling with the reality that Mark's return threatened the delicate balance I had created. Mark shifted his gaze to the floor, and I could see the internal struggle etched on his face. I know it won't be easy. I love Sam, and I've missed so much time with him. I want to be there, even if it means facing the consequences of my choices. His words hung in the air, but I couldn't shake the feeling of betrayal that still lingered. You can't just take his love for granted, Mark. This isn't just about you wanting to be a father now. It's about rebuilding trust. And right now, I can't even look at you without feeling a rush of anger. He took a deep breath, and for a moment, I thought I saw a flicker of understanding in his eyes. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I'm willing to do whatever it takes to earn it. That declaration gave me pause, stirring something deep within me. I wanted to protect Sam above all else, but was I truly ready to keep Mark out of his life entirely? Maybe there was room for a conversation, a way to tread this complicated path without sacrificing my own sanity or my son's well-being. Fine, I said slowly, feeling the words like stones in my mouth. But it has to be on my terms. You will respect my boundaries, and you will prioritize Sam. You may have a new family, but that doesn't erase our history. Mark nodded, and I could see the relief wash over him. Yet, deep inside, I remained conflicted. The boundaries I was setting felt precarious, and I was terrified of what might happen next. Would he genuinely commit to his role as a father, or would this just be another chapter of disappointment in my life? As I glanced back at Sam, who was now engrossed in a world of imagination, I knew I couldn't let my fears dictate our future. The love I had for my son would guide me, and whatever lay ahead, I would face it with the determination that had always been a part of who I was. It was time to take control and redefine what family meant to me, even if it meant navigating uncharted waters. I knew that the days ahead would be anything but easy, yet I felt a flicker of resolve igniting within me. As I watched Sam play, his laughter ringing like a melody, I realized that my primary focus needed to be on him. He was at such a tender age, full of curiosity and wonder, and I couldn't let the chaos surrounding us dim his light. Mark's return with Rachel and their child had turned my world upside down, but I was determined to create a safe space for Sam, one that would allow him to thrive despite the circumstances. The very next morning, I woke up with a sense of purpose. I decided to reach out to Mark. It was crucial to establish a line of communication, not just for my own sanity, but for Sam's sake. I wanted to understand what this new reality meant for us. After all, Mark was still his father, and I wanted to be fair, even if I felt like my heart was being torn apart. I sent him a message, asking him to come over when he had the chance. I needed clarity, and perhaps he could provide some. As I waited for his response, I took a moment to reflect on the last 3 years. I had transformed from a wide-eyed wife into a battle-hardened mother. I had learned to fend for myself and Sam, to repair broken things around the house, and to juggle work while nurturing our bond. I took pride in my resilience, but I also felt the weight of unanswered questions. What did Mark really want from me? Was he here to fix things, or was he merely trying to play the role of a father with no regard for the pain he had caused? When Mark finally arrived, his presence filled the room with tension. The familiarity of his figure clashed with the reality of his choices. He stood awkwardly in the doorway, unsure how to bridge the distance that had grown between us. I gestured for him to sit, my heart racing as I prepared for the conversation I had long anticipated but dreaded. "Leela," he began, his voice shaky, "I know this is complicated." "Complicated doesn't even begin to cover it," I replied, the words slipping out more harshly than I intended. I needed to express my hurt, but I also wanted to be strategic. You have a lot to explain, Mark. He sighed deeply, running a hand through his hair, a gesture I once found endearing. I never wanted to hurt you or Sam.
I thought I could come back and we could work things out. Work things out? I echoed, incredulity creeping into my voice. You left us without a word for 3 years. You built a life with someone else and brought a child into this mess. What do you expect me to say? I love you, Leela, he implored, his eyes searching mine for understanding. I always have, but Rachel and things just happened. I made mistakes. Mistakes? This isn't just a mistake, Mark. This is a betrayal. Sam deserves more than half-hearted apologies and empty promises. I deserve more. He shifted uncomfortably, and I could see the regret etched on his face. I wanted to believe he was genuinely remorseful, but I had learned the hard way that actions spoke louder than words. What do you expect me to do? I pressed, trying to keep my voice steady. You want to come back like nothing has changed, but everything has changed. I want to be a father to Sam, he confessed. I want to make things right. I know I have no right to ask this, but can we try to co-parent? The term co-parent struck me like a slap. It felt so clinical, so devoid of the warmth and love I used to associate with family. You expect me to accept Rachel and your new child as part of this arrangement? I challenged, my pulse quickening. I want to be there for you both. I can't change the past, but I want to be part of Sam's life, he replied, desperation creeping into his tone. A part of me wanted to scream, to tell him that he had lost his right to determine how my life unfolded. But another part recognized the importance of maintaining some semblance of a family for Sam. I don't know if I can do that, I admitted, my voice trembling. This isn't just about you anymore. As Mark's expression faltered, I felt a wave of empathy wash over me. He was just a man trying to find his way back from a dark corner of his life. But was I willing to let him back in, knowing that Rachel was still lurking in the shadows? I had to think of Sam first. Let's take baby steps, I finally said, my heart heavy. You can see Sam, but I need boundaries. I won't allow Rachel into our lives, at least not yet. He nodded, relief flooding his features. I understand. Thank you for giving me this chance. As we talked, I realized how much I had changed. I was no longer the submissive wife who would bend to Mark's whims. I was a mother with a fierce love for her child, ready to stand my ground. We discussed schedules and boundaries, and though it felt like stepping into a minefield, I knew it was the right thing to do. After Mark left, I sat down with Sam, who was still happily engrossed in his toys. I pulled him into my arms, holding him tightly as if to shield him from the storm brewing outside our little world. You know, buddy, things are going to change a bit, I whispered, feeling the weight of my responsibilities settle over me like a heavy blanket. But I promise, no matter what, we'll always be together. I needed to believe that. As I watched Sam's innocent smile, I felt a flicker of hope igniting within me. I was determined to create a future where he could flourish, no matter how the story unfolded. It was my time to shine, and I was ready to step into the light. If any of you have faced similar challenges, I invite you to share your stories. How did you navigate through the complexities of family? Your experiences could inspire others and remind them that they are not alone in their struggles. As I sat on the edge of my bed, the weight of the past few days pressed heavily on my chest. Mark's return had thrown my world into chaos, leaving me grappling with emotions I thought I had buried deep. I could still hear the laughter of Sam in the hallway, blissfully unaware of the storm brewing in our lives. He was my anchor, his innocence a stark contrast to the turmoil unfolding around us. I had to protect him, preserve the original language of the text. The confrontation with Mark had been brutal. I had demanded answers, needing clarity in the fog of betrayal. Every explanation he offered felt like an excuse, a way to justify the choices he had made while I held our family together. Rachel, with her bright eyes and easy smile, stood beside him, a silent reminder of what I had lost and what I would never be able to reclaim. She had given him a child, a living embodiment of the life he chose over ours. The thought twisted like a knife in my gut, but I refused to let it break me. I needed to find my footing in this new reality, one that felt foreign and painful. Days passed, and I focused on Sam, pouring my energy into him and trying to shield him from the discord. We spent afternoons at the park, where I would push him on the swings while my mind raced with thoughts of how to move forward. I could see the joy in his eyes, and for those moments, I allowed myself to forget the ache in my heart. However, every time I heard a child's laughter that wasn't Sam's, a pang of jealousy shot through me, reminding me of the life Mark had chosen. With each passing day, I felt an internal shift. The old Leela, the one who felt lost and fragile, was beginning to fade. I realized that I had to reclaim my narrative, to no longer be defined by Mark's choices or Rachel's presence. I started journaling, pouring my thoughts onto the pages as a way to process my feelings. Writing became my sanctuary. It was where I found clarity amidst the chaos. I detailed everything, my anger, my sadness, the confusion swirling in my heart. I wrote about my dreams for Sam and what kind of mother I wanted to be for him moving forward. One evening, as I sat in the dim light of my living room, I heard a knock at the door. My heart raced as I opened it to find Mark standing there, looking uncertain. I almost closed the door again but stopped myself. Instead, I stepped aside, allowing him entry. I wouldn't hide from him. I would confront him instead. He looked different, wearier somehow, as if the weight of his choices was becoming too much to bear. "Can we talk?" he asked, his voice low and hesitant. "What is there to say, Mark?" I replied, crossing my arms defensively. I could see the guilt written across his face, but I refused to give him the satisfaction of knowing I still cared. "I want to explain things, my choices, my mistakes," he said, his voice thick with emotion. I raised an eyebrow, skeptical. Did he think an explanation would wipe away the years of pain he had caused? "You think that talking will fix everything?" I challenged. I wasn't sure if I was angrier at him or at myself for even considering hearing him out. But a part of me was curious. I wanted to understand the man who had abandoned us. "I know I hurt you, and I can't take that back," he admitted, his eyes searching mine for some semblance of forgiveness. "But Rachel isn't the person I wanted to be with. I didn't want to hurt you, Leela. I just lost my way." "Lost your way?" I echoed incredulously. "You don't just lose your way and come back with a new family, Mark. You made choices, conscious decisions that led you here." He sighed heavily, running a hand through his hair. "I know, and I'm sorry. I never wanted to put you through this. I thought I was doing what was best for everyone. I didn't realize how wrong I was until it was too late." I felt a flicker of sympathy, but I quickly squashed it down. "What do you want from me? Do you expect me to forgive you just like that? To accept Rachel and the child without question?" "I want to be a part of Sam's life," he confessed, his voice pleading. "I know I don't deserve it, but I want to be a father to him again, and I want you to be okay. I want to help you, Leela." His words hit me like a tidal wave, crashing over my carefully constructed walls. How could he think he could simply waltz back in after abandoning us for so long? I shook my head, trying to process the implications of what he was saying. "You don't get to dictate how this works. You left us. I don't even know if I can trust you again." "I'll do whatever it takes to earn your trust back," he said, a desperation evident in his voice. "Just give me a chance to show you that I'm different now." I looked at him, the man I had once loved, trying to find remnants of the person I once knew.
My heart was a battlefield, torn between the memories of our life together and the harsh reality of betrayal. I had to make a choice, not just for me, but for Sam as well. As I searched for the right words, I realized I was no longer the woman who would accept anything less than what I deserved. I had to figure out how to navigate this new territory, balancing my own healing with what was best for my son.